Welcome to Charts Today. It is Friday, the 14th of August, and the markets are pretty quiet at the moment. It's been a hot summer in Europe, and August is a very quiet time in the Northern Hemisphere generally. People are quite distracted. But we are seeing, just looking here at the yen, the dollar yen rate. So this is the dollar strength. Dollar buys more yen, so yen weakness, dollar strength. And we're seeing those interventions where the yen falls to a level and markets intervene. And there has been talk, of course, that the US would stop intervening, supporting the yen. That would be very significant if that does happen. Central banks generally want currencies to remain stable because that creates turmoil globally. And we're also just conscious that this carry trade, where you could borrow at low interest rates in Japan and then invest in the US and get a higher return US dollar, that carry trade is one to always watch. And of course, the key thing is spotting any changes there, and that will have a very significant impact. We're seeing here on the yen, the Japanese government bond yield, the 10-year yield, we have got this upside target. That's looking like quite a sort of bullish triangle pattern. And so 3.5% is the target, and that would create quite a lot of issues for Japan, the most indebted nation in the world. The most indebted large economy with a debt to GDP ratio 250%. So certainly something to just keep an eye on, and we do watch that quite closely in charts today. The dollar index is fairly flat. This is the measure against various currencies. We did look yesterday at the Chinese yuan. That's something that's we are seeing yuan strength, dollar weakness, so that's quite interesting. Bitcoin remains bearish on the medium term and on the short term and on the long term, so it'd be a brave trader taking long-term positions in Bitcoin. And if we look at markets through the Nasdaq, we're still waiting to see if we can activate that upside target. The future is flat this morning, as is the S&P, so it's going to be a quiet opening. We will look at the stocks in a minute, but it's quite interesting that the position is relatively neutral in the indices, but we are seeing, as always, outliers, some quite big performances. The UK market is up 0.25% this morning. But it has been very flat this last week or two, reflecting that quiet summer. And the same with the DAX. We have gone into a consolidation pattern. This is a short-term chart. We have upside targets. Does suggest move, run, break higher, but at the moment it's looking pretty quiet. Japan is actually making new all-time highs. That is driven by that weaker yen, higher Japanese company earnings, so it's quite key. The Sensex in India, just struggling still. And if we look at the medium-term chart, we're just failing to activate that upside target. This is looking a bit like an ascending triangle off the bottom, but we need to break. The Aussie market down nearly 1%, so we've got an upside target there on the medium-term chart, but we're just struggling at that resistance level, so quite key. Crude oil, WTI, the support level is $80, and on that's the support level for WTI. On Brent crude, the resistance level is $90. We are up 1.3% this morning, but the trend is just fairly neutral at the moment there as well in the short term. Sugar, this has been a really big move. So this is the short-term chart. We look at the medium term. This is looking, if not a double bottom, potentially a triple bottom or a head and shoulders. It's academic in a way because the thrust and then the target has been activated. So we're seeing sugar in a potentially new trend. Looking at the long-term chart, we will need to see maybe a clearer pullback to a higher low and then a higher high. But this is quite an interesting chart. And I worked with a sugar trading company in Australia last year, and I do keep an eye on that for them. Looking at gold, we are just hitting a bit of resistance here. We had upside targets, but we've moved back below the cloud on the 60-minute chart. We do have this 4,300 level, which was sort of a line of action that was resistance, now potentially could become support. It's certainly one to watch. Keep an eye on the shorter term charts. On stocks, we saw largely a big performance yesterday. We saw that you see a lot of green. Amazon bucked the trend; they were down, but Meta was up nearly 3%. Tesla was up 4%. So we are seeing quite a lot of volatility there. And if we go to the Dow 30, we saw Cisco down 8% yesterday, just bang. So that's really interesting that we're just seeing that topping pattern there. Remembering we were looking at the semiconductor index, and that is still just struggling. We do have an upside target that's been activated, so that's new, but we do have to break to new highs really. This has potential. We've now got the low and the high. Will we make a lower low or will we make a higher high? That's the big question. SpaceX was down 3%. But in the scheme of things, that recovery is still underway on SpaceX. So quite key there as well. Looking at the NASDAQ 100, again, some quite big performances if we rank by percentage. Workday, that was an unbelievable move yesterday, up 17%. We did have the target in place, so that's quite interesting. The target was already there. We were above the cloud, and we saw a big move, 17%. It was and much higher at one point. CoStar was up 8%, but not enough to really change the picture of that chart. So very different moves there. And Western Digital also, but obviously looking very similar to the semiconductor index. And stocks like Intuit that had a pretty bad year, again, a big move, just breaking the cloud, but no clear targets there. And if we go to the other end of the system, Cisco was the worst performer, and Microchip down 2%. But just we are seeing, interestingly, a lot of these trends are just going into consolidation phases. So it's quite key. That's it for today. Have a great weekend. Keep an eye on those trends and targets. Until Monday, bye for now.